So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 106 of Level Up, 60 minutes, as you know, live Q&A, where your questions, chat, and votes really do drive the show. A warm welcome. Please do let our social team know your name and the city, of course, from where you are joining. We really do love to get everybody involved. Now then, they are online, Ella and Adriana, and they're waiting for you there. And they will post a link into the chat so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And of course, so that you can add your own to the panel. We live stream Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2 UK time to both YouTube and LinkedIn. And I'll mention a little bit about that when we close the show later on. If your question is selected, your name will, of course, appear now in the credits at the end of the show. So do get your questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happen. Now, today, we're going to be talking about building cultures, and in particular, a culture of business relationship management in your organization, from the very top of the C-suite all of the way to the bottom, and in fact, vice versa. So what are the steps that you really need to take to help colleagues embrace that way of working? And ultimately, can this kind of culture really help you succeed better as an organization? Let's meet our panel of experts who are joining us today for our conversation. From the Netherlands, I'd like to introduce you to Daniëlle Hellebrand, who is the CEO at BetterBrains at Work. What a fabulous name for an organization. Daniëlle is an executive coach, of course, inspirational speaker, and she holds a master's degree in neuroscience. Since setting up her own practice, I think it's fair to say, Daniëlle, that you've never really looked back. So welcome back to the Level Up panel. Lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me, Nick. And as the quality of our relationships determine the quality of our lives, it's such an important subject we're talking about today. So I'm looking forward to the questions of the audience and learning from the other panelists.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed, Daniëlle. Malini Jayaganesh is, of course, a highly experienced business relationship manager herself, and she really does practice what she preaches, building great connections across organizations that she works for and also that she volunteers within as well. A regular contributor, of course, to Level Up. And welcome back to the panel, Malini. Lovely to see you again.
Likewise, Nick. Hello to everyone from Melbourne, and I'm looking forward to the questions from our viewers around the globe today. I know in the past they've always posed some really thought-provoking questions. I'm looking forward to more of the same.
Thank you very much. And this shows you the dedication and commitment from the panel and the truly global nature of the show. As it's already Friday evening, and Malini's very kindly given us some of her family time for today's event. So thank you to you. Dianne Rampadarath joins us from not quite the other side of the planet, but quite a long way over to the west, actually. So we moved from the eastern side of the map to the western side of the map. She is, of course, based in Trinidad and Tobago, where she works as Assistant Director at the Public Service of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Familiar, of course, with navigating across complex stakeholder groups, Dianne takes these techniques in relationship management really to new heights. Welcome back to Level Up, Dianne. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much, Nick. So thanks again, Nick, Shanice, and the team at APMG International for the opportunity to appear on Level Up. And I'm looking forward to a very interesting show to discuss this very important topic of building and maintaining positive relationships. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Svetlana Sidenko holds a Master's of Business Relationship Management qualification and is the founder and the president of IT Chapter. Now, IT Chapter is a Canadian women-owned company which really does specialize in business relationship management and IT service management consulting, and of course, education and training as well. So welcome to Level Up, Svetlana. Lovely to have you here with us.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for inviting me. Very happy to be here, and warm regards from Canada. If there are any Canadians listening to us, hi, everyone.
Okay, I'm sure that there will be. I'm sure that there will be, from the East Coast to the West Coast to those beautiful landscapes in between as well. I'm sure they'll be tuning in. Louis Aylward is, of course, an experienced change management consultant with Granger Limited, and he works principally in the law enforcement sector, where he combines his government and commercial experience to help organisations transform at pace and scale. Welcome back to Level Up, Louis. Lovely to have you on the panel today.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you for having me. Really interested in today's topic, and I've already got my first insight, which was Danielle's quote: "The quality of our relationships dictates the quality of our life." I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think I would absolutely echo that. And it's the kind of thing today, everybody, that you can apply not just in a work context, all right? There'll be lots of practical ideas today that you can really think about doing and put into action straight away. There's no need to wait until the new year to set out those resolutions. All right, very good. Our question master for today, joining the panel, is Shanice Mitchell-Cox, who's joining us from the sunlit uplands of South Wales here in the UK. How are you doing, Shanice?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today as question master. I'm really looking forward to this episode.
All right, fantastic. Now, we've got lots of people already online on social media. I can see Anna is joining us from Poland. Welcome, Anna. Really great to have you listening today. Ishmael as well. Lovely to have you online. Fantastic to see. And Maximiliano Cubas is joining us from El Salvador. So humble apologies for, as this Englishman tries to do a decent job of pronouncing your name, Maximiliano, but I've done my best, my friend. You're very welcome and great to have you. Now, on that note, I think, Shanice, we should jump straight in with the questions if we can, and let's take our first question, please.
Of course, thanks, Nick. So we've actually got a question who's on the panel today. What is the role of leaders in...
All right. So just for those of you who missed the audio there, what is the role of leaders in setting out the business relationship culture? Well, of course, we do talk a great deal, don't we, about that culture begins at the top of an organization. And I think whether you're thinking of leadership in that hierarchical fashion, or you're thinking about it from the perspective of individual contributors, then, it is something that we definitely need to be able to demonstrate our commitment by living that relationship and that culture rather than just simply talking about it. Dianne, what are your thoughts on this?
So strong leaders provide mentorship, vision, and inspiration to the team that they lead, and they're also very capable of shaping and reshaping to meet the strategic objectives of the organization. So the leaders and what their agenda and objective is would filter down throughout the organization. So if a leader is promoting business relationship management and building positive relationships, you would tend to find that it would filter throughout the organization to meet the strategic objectives.
Yeah, I think that you're right. You need to be able to be seen, don't you? That visible leadership is super important. Malini, what are your thoughts on this?
I'd like to build on what Dianne has just said. I think, visible leadership is absolutely the key. And I think it needs to be visible, sustained leadership. Because one of the challenges that many organizations, that intend or aspire to have a business relationship management culture, one of the challenges they face is that there's a change in the leadership or something, and the commitment drops off. Right? It takes time to build good business relationship management culture. It is not something that happens overnight. So we need leaders who are actually committed to seeing it through for the long term.
I think that's such an important thing. Those timescales are really important. I might come back to that in a few moments. Daniëlle, your thoughts, please, on leadership in setting out that culture.
What a wonderful question, Louis, and especially Malini, you're so right. It takes time. We want to do things too quick. And with almost 55 years of age, I come from a culture of a know-it-all leader. And that's not possible in today's society anymore. a leader has a little kind of a power in an organization, and people are looking up to a leader, not only to their words, but also to the behavior. So the role of a leader is crucial. It starts there.
Totally right. Now, Louis, you put in this question to the panel so that we could begin to consider, what it really means. And this is something that we really encourage panelists to do, and everybody who's online to submit questions. What are your thoughts on leadership and the link between that and setting out a culture of business relationship management?
Well, first of all, thank you to the panelists, because I've got what I wanted, which was to sort of draw on your expertise for purely selfish reasons, because this is a topic which really interests me. My sort of view on this is that leaders have a really key role in setting a culture in any sense, and I think all the panelists have echoed that. I think that they do that through role modeling the culture that they want to see, but it's not enough to role model. You need to be seen to role model. So the visibility of leadership is quite important. My fellow panelists have articulated that a little bit better than I have. The one thing that we haven't talked about maybe is also how a new leader is an opportunity to review the culture. There are various ways in which you can develop the culture. It's not the only way, but a new leader coming in, that's a real opportunity. It doesn't last for a long time. And sometimes I think we don't always seize those windows of opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. When you have a new appointment, there's a fresh start for everybody. It's not just for that person. Svetlana, you've worked with a lot of organizations in thinking about improving their business relationship management. What's your thoughts on the connection between leadership and the culture?
Yeah. So, my thoughts, I agree a lot about the visibility and commitment of the leaders. And while I'm working and coaching a lot of business relationship managers, this question pops up all the time: how we influence organization to adopt the new culture. And my first question is your leader on board? Are you executives sort of sponsoring this important change in your organization? Are they visible? Are they supportive? And many times the answer, especially at the beginning of setting up the business relationship management culture, is that either not, or partially, or not enough. And my answer to that is that bottom-up setting up of business relationship culture will not work. So get your leaders on board. And if you are a business relationship manager, influence your leader and recruit your leader to understand the importance of commitment of leadership and setting up of business relationship management culture.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. Now, one other consideration for everybody is when we say leaders, and the question is plural, we don't always mean just the CEO. Okay, we don't just mean the functional leader. We also mean the social leaders. We know that there are people that we work with. If you want anything to be done, you go and find them, because they have this informal network. They really lead. There are others who really can take the pulse of an organization, who know empathetically exactly how people are feeling. What's the mood out there in the organization? And when you're working to try and transform digitally, or whether you're trying to transform emotionally, or whether you're trying to transform relationships in organizations, you need all of that kind of input. So just consider that there may be some hidden leaders that you might need to think about as well, engage them in that journey. So very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. What a great question to start us off with, Louis. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll send you a box of chocolates at some point, all right, for that, because it's a cracking question. So thank you very much indeed. Very good. Let's move on then, I think, if we can, and take our next question, please, Shanice.
Of course, thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Claire. Why do you think business relationship management is taking on strategic importance?
Oh, well, it's a really good question, Claire, because it does seem to be something which is jumping up in the scale of importance for individuals and teams. Daniëlle, start us off on this one, then we'll hear from Dianne.
Well, I think it's of the utmost importance because we're living in a complex world. A lot is going on, also in the market. So how on earth can one leader, one brain be a know-it-all? So it is of the utmost strategic importance that we get the knowledge and the competences of a lot of people. And a company is a place where a lot of smart people work, if everything is okay. And I think it is key to get all the knowledge and the competence out of the brains of the smart people who are working for your company. And how do you do that? By having a dialogue, by having good relationship, by building a culture of trust so people dare to speak up. So I think if you want to survive as a company on the long term, you have to work on good business relationships.
Really important there, isn't there, about that, building that trust. Dianne, your thoughts, please, then Louis.
Business relationship management is about meeting the needs of existing and potential customers, as well as providing technological guidance on your business processes to meet the needs of customers and maintain your relationship. And the bottom line really is about increasing sales, increasing profits, and ensuring that the philosophy of the organization is understood by all divisions. So the role of BRM is therefore strategic in terms of moving the organization forward and achieving its objectives.
Okay, thank you so much indeed, Dianne. I really appreciate that. Louis and then Svetlana, please.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I think that business relationship management has been important for a long time. I think it's taking on even more importance now for some particular issues. I think if you look at this historically, sort of organizations through the process of industrialization really have become more and more specialized. And we've seen more and more siloism work its way into organizations. So that specialism has given us lots of advantages, but it has eroded our ability to think and talk as a group, as one organization. And I think business relationship management is trying to almost go back a little bit, recapture that without undoing any of the benefits we've had from specialism.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Svetlana, your thoughts?
Management, well, business relationships brings organizations and teams to trust, to collaboration, to shared ownership, ultimately to optimizing the value and driving value in organization. Why business relationship management is taking strategic importance now is because industries and organizations now realize that, and they're taking deliberate approach to the investment in business relationship management. And they are recognizing that that's exactly what drives value in organization, because relationships is everywhere. And organizations have business relationship management capability regardless of whether they recognize it or not, and it can be weak or strong, and it's becoming strategic, and most organizations understand that now.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I think the key word here is why. All right. So the question was, why is business relationship management becoming even more important? And the short answer is because in a period of uncertainty, right, relationships are the way that you get things done and you avoid the unintended consequences of things. Just think for a moment about what's happening in the world. Where relationships are poor, there comes conflict. And through conflict, business suffers, relationships suffer, people suffer. So having good relationships enables you to manage things strategically. They go beyond the present moment. If you have a strong relationship, you can recover from momentary lapses. If you have a weak relationship, momentary lapses may be terminal. I think that's why, in a nutshell, we're living through very uncertain times. And that's why it is so much more important now, perhaps, than it might have been, at some point in the past when things were a little bit more predictable. Now, over on social media, we've got a fantastic audience today. So we are really seeing an awful lot of people online. So thank you for joining us. I just want to, give a bit of a shout out to all of the different cities and countries. Nuruddin, thank you for joining us from Nigeria. Fantastic to have you as part of the team today. And Sachitra, of course, dialing in from Bangalore. You're allowed to say dialing in anymore on a broadband? I'm not sure that you are, really. Shows my age. Eddie, fantastic. Great comment. Thank you so much for that. Creating a supportive environment is so critical, isn't it, for enabling a culture of business relationship management to flourish. And Anne Noel, thank you so much for joining us from Belgium. As an Englishman, I'm going to struggle with a correct Belgian pronunciation of your city. But I will look it up and see if I can come back to that a little bit later on. Very good. Thank you very much indeed, everybody who's joining us online today. If you do have a question for the panel, of course, just type it into the chat and the team will pick it up and we'll put it to the panel. So, Shanice, on that note, let's move on, please. If we can, we'll take our next question, please.
Of course. So we've got a question from Carl. Can the panel share their view on how a business relationship management culture affects people?
All right. So culture and its impact on people. Who would like to start us off on this, please, panel? Daniëlle.
Well, a little bit from a neuroscientific point of view. We have a brain just to think rationally, but that is a subsystem of the brain. It's a social organ. So if we're talking about culture, we're talking about people doing things together and hopefully in a good way. So yes, having good relationships, working in a good way together, having a culture of trust. It's of the utmost importance and it affects people. If I don't trust, if I don't feel well, if I don't feel being heard and seen, that huge amount of being me, that's my social needs, if they are not being met, research shows that our IQ can sink with 50.
I think we may have lost our connection to Daniëlle, so we'll come back to her momentarily. Malini, can you pick this one up and then we'll hear from Dianne?
So from my experience, Carl, what I've seen in organizations where I've been brought in to introduce and establish a culture of business relationship management, one of the outcomes that we see quite early on is that people start feeling that like they are able to bring their best self to work. Right? So because you are able to operate in in an environment where there is trust, where you are not going to be judged, where you're able to share your views, voice your views, and so on without fear of being judged or being knocked down. You'll find that people will actually end up being a lot more creative, a lot more innovative. So I think a business relationship management culture has a very positive impact on people working in the organization and their ability to innovate.
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed. Dianne and then Louis.
DRM is someone who listens very well, is someone who is empathetic and promotes positive relationships among customers, clients, and persons within the organization. So essentially, a BRM works with people. So everything that they do is people-centered, and therefore the impact, once it's a positive business relationship, would have a positive impact on people.
Thank you very much indeed. Louis, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I would just come at it from a different angle because I think that Daniëlle, Malini, and Dianne have covered the point really well, actually. and turn that question around and say, Carl, what would be the impact of not having a culture of strong business relationship management in your organization? What would that look like? And I think you would see people unwilling to speak up on questions of innovation, which is really going to damage the organization's ability to change. And fundamentally, you won't have the basic philosophy of business relationship management, which is that positive relationships drive value. And once the people in the organization see that they're no longer connected to value creation, they're just there to fill a role, to communicate with each other, to have meetings, and it becomes very damaging to the organization, and that organization can suffer very quickly. So, it should affect people very positively, and it's not just a nice to have.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Svetlana, your thoughts?
Well, their business relationship management culture creates an environment of trust and collaboration, and it's very, very important for people. It creates the safe culture, no blame culture. Well, sometimes we observe in organization occasions like finger pointing, not sharing important information with each other, blame game, and that's all signs of lack of business relationship management culture, or even sometimes broken or damaged relationships. And when you are setting up the business relationship management culture, so it brings trust, it brings people to be safe. And I agree with Malini. People are not afraid to voice themselves, generate ideas. People feel that they're heard and their emotional needs are taken care of. And we are humans, right? So we want to then invest in the organization who invest in us, and that is driving value ultimately. Yeah, that's how it affects people. We feel good in this company. We want to stay. Retention, human retention is higher. People feel more loyal, and ultimately the productivity goes up too.
There's such great value in that. I think I'm going to have to later on panel, when I watch the recording back on YouTube, I'm going to have to kind of watch this answer 2 or 3 times. Okay. And the reason is we had some amazingly inspirational thoughts there. Okay. So let's just replay some of those back to people. It creates the ability for you to bring your best self to work. Isn't that a remarkably simple sentence, and yet one that is truly meaningful? If we all think back to our very first day, having been appointed to our most recent job, and how you felt on that first day, the pride, the commitment, the energy that you brought into your new role, what a fantastic thing. If only every day was like that. Okay. If you could bring the very best of yourself to work every day and make it like that first day, wouldn't that be a fabulous feeling? And I would say, if that was the case, that would be how it would feel. All right. It would feel like every day was your first day at work. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Very good. Shanice, rather, if we can, let's take our next question, please.
Of course. We've got some live questions that have come in, actually. This one's from Raoul. Sorry. How can people from different cultures and beliefs be aligned in a single business culture?
That's a really good question, Raoul. So let's start with Dianne. You work with multiple stakeholders across different business cultures, different geographical cultures as well. So what are your thoughts on this? We'll hear from you, and then we'll go to Svetlana next.
Different cultures bring different perspectives. Multicultural organization, which is indeed important because we are now living in a village, and our development strategy impacted by international technical corporations and protocol agreements. However, there is usually one mandate and one goal of an organ and a business relationship. One of the objectives is so that the value of the organization is clearly understood by all persons and sections of the organization. So although the different cultural perspectives are important, the BRM brings it back to one objective and goal of the organization.
Yeah. No, thank you very much indeed. We are having a few little technical challenges today, Dianne, so we're going to work through those with you on your audio. But let's hear from Svetlana next, and then we'll go to Malini.
Yeah, well, different cultures are a great thing. The diversity is a great thing. So the more diverse, it has been proven recently in multiple research, and the more cultures and diversity we use in one single organization, well, the better it is. But now, how we bring people and organizations with different cultures, geographical cultures, not only geographical cultures, for example, gender, or other differences in culture to one single business culture. So first of all, I want to underline the importance of common language. The change in culture always starts with utilizing the common language. It might appear as a minor thing, or maybe it's not that important, but it's crucially important. So we want to have all our people, members of organization, use the common language and know exactly what we mean in common language. Not in this case, knowledge helps. So we need to know what this common language is and put deliberate steps to implement this common language. But then, second point I want to bring is a culture or the notion of shared ownership and collaboration towards the common goal. So we need to ensure that all our culturally diverse teams have their one common goal towards certain value points in organization. Then if everyone works towards the common goal, the culture will follow.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Svetlana. And Malini, your thoughts, please.
Well, Svetlana has pretty much covered what I wanted to say about, about language and communication, and also about having a clear understanding about the purpose and the vision for business relationship management, right, for your organization. So different people would approach it from different perspectives, but as long as we are heading in the same direction and we are doing it together, you'll still get to the end result.
Thank you very much indeed. Louis, your thoughts?
Well, it's a great question, Raoul. My answer would be go beyond the things on the surface. So the things on the surface will be the very clear cultural differences in the different ways we do courtesies, signs, the symbols, the artifacts, maybe the way we dress and the way we address each other. Go beyond them. Don't try to converge them, but go beyond them. And as it's been said, what is the fundamental purpose here? Maybe look not just at purpose, but also mastery. Regardless of your culture, you will gain great enjoyment from mastering something and from owning something.
Thank you very much indeed. Daniëlle, final thoughts on this one?
Everything is said already to all the panelists, but just one final thought. I mean, we're all human beings, and what unites us across the globes is our quest for meaning and the desire to do good and working good together. So also look at the things that unites us.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Thank you so much indeed. What a wonderful question. Thank you so much, Raoul, for phrasing that so succinctly for us. Great job. Shanice, let's move on, please, if we can, and we'll take our next question.
Of course. We've got a question from Maximiliano. How can we balance the energy that the organisation puts on the business without losing the focus of the well-being of your human resources?
This can happen sometimes, can't it? I've worked in organisations where there's tens of thousands of people, but the HR team is tiny. And yet they seem to have to be involved in all of the tough stuff. How would you go about that, Dianne? How would you make sure that we protected some of those HR colleagues and gave them that opportunity to contribute, but without feeling as though they are just simply going to get burned out?
Some of the tools which a BRM can implement, which are building blocks, should be continuous strategic analysis and information sharing, creating a good business plan and a sales plan, as well as following up and collaboration. So although HR one aspect of the work that a BRM does, it's important because you're essentially dealing with people. So they can use these building blocks as a means of ensuring that you don't lose focus or well-being.
Okay, thank you very much. Daniëlle, in your experience, how do you create that space for HR to add value without crushing them?
We cannot crush the people. You see what's going on in the world. If you look at the numbers of the World Health Organization, how many people suffer from depression and burnout. You don't have the full potential of your people. And maybe it sounds like, we have to take a lot of time to put energy into our people and having a lot of conversation, etc., etc. But at the end, it's one of the most important things you can do, because if we burn people burn the planet. So we have to take care of our people and on their well-being, because as I said before, our IQ drops, and that is not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Maximiliano, I think I read this as being the HR function. You may well mean it actually just to mean everybody in the organization. And having worked for publicly quoted companies that have a high cadence, where monthly results, quarterly results, and annual results are the name of the game, if you're not very careful in that sort of environment of trying to prove to the market that you're able to keep pace with their ambition, you can unwittingly place too much focus on that and not enough actually in bringing the organization with you. So it becomes an unhealthy growth in revenue rather than a sustainable, healthy growth in revenue. So there are some things which I think I would suggest to you to be able to balance those things out. The first thing is to make sure that when you're budgeting, you're not just taking last year plus X. It's lazy budgeting that. Start thinking about what are the macro forces which are shaping the environment in which you're working in. You may have a fantastic product which is emerging from the early adopter stage into the early majority, and that's going to fuel growth for a little while. And fantastic, that's wonderful. In which case, last year's results aren't necessarily indicative, are they? Not in a linear fashion. Equally so, many of us now are sailing into the headwinds of uncertainty with variable spend in organizations reducing as they begin to consider the impact of inflationary pressures around the world, supply chain challenges, and so on. So we do need to think about that if we're setting those goals. And if we're keeping that cadence going, we need to be realistic. So thank you very much, Maximiliano. We really appreciate the question. Shanice, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Of course, thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Arlene, one of our regular contributors. What role does authenticity play in building and sustaining a culture of business relationship management?
Okay, Malini, start us off, and then we'll hear from Louis.
Arlene, what a fabulous question. You would have heard, of course, over the last 40 minutes, probably the most commonly repeated word has been trust. Right? And you cannot have trust in an environment where authenticity is absent. And people can see through, if we're not being authentic and if we're putting on a face, people are not dumb. They will actually see through that. So I would say authenticity is authenticity and integrity are two things that are absolutely critical in building and sustaining long-term business relationships. Authenticity, of course, needs to be tempered with emotional intelligence. So it's not just about always just blurting out what you think and feel without consideration for the other person's feeling, right? So it's about, I know you're laughing, Nick, but you know what I mean. So interpret the word authenticity with care.
It's so important, isn't it? Really, there ought to be a filter, and I sometimes, my filter's not good enough, all right, between what I'm thinking and what I'm saying. And I'm laughing because I need to work much harder on that, Malini. So I'm definitely going to take that on board myself, okay? Louis, your thoughts on this, and then Daniëlle.
Yeah, great question. So for me, authenticity is a precursor to establishing a good relationship. I think that's true in life, and it's true in business as well. So I agree with everything that Malini said. I think that this point about authenticity, it's a precursor, but it's a precursor you don't always establish until you're into the relationship. So it is something to keep checking in on. Are you still being authentic? Actually, have you established the authenticity or not? And if you are in a BRM role, because we've been talking today a lot about business relationship management as a philosophy that's shared across the organization, because some people will be doing a specific role. If you're in that role, you really need to need to be honest. If you're representing a function, be honest about that function, what it can do, what it can't do, what its weaknesses are. And that will give you a far sounder basis for the relationship than anything else.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniëlle.
Malini and Louis, you said it so beautifully. I just wanted to add one more thing. We don't follow words. We follow a lot of other things that are on a subconscious level. Our conscious is just a few percentages. The rest is on a subconscious level. So you've got to walk the talk. If you don't do that, people won't believe you. So being real and honest and authentic, it's so important, because we talk a lot about big data, but people feel the warm data. These are all these subconscious impulses that we spread to each other. So if you don't walk the talk, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And not just one time. It's something we have to do over and over and over, because our energy introduces us before we even speak.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Such an important thing. And of course, authenticity does not equate to intransigence. We do evolve and change over time, and recognizing that and making sure that we're reflecting that as well is an important aspect of our own personal development, I think. So very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And what a wonderful question from Arlene. Really well put together. Thank you so much. Joining us from around the world, Abu Bakar, thank you so much for joining from Borno in Nigeria, and Maziba as well, all the way from Luxembourg, actually, which is a little closer to where I am here in the UK than Nigeria is, and similar kind of weather, I think, that we're having, right now across Europe, unseasonably warm, I think, for this time of year, although I think it all may change very soon. So thank you very much indeed. Let's move on if we can. Shanice, I think we've probably got time to fit in one or two more questions, but we're going to have to hurry, panel.
Thanks, Nick. So we've got a question from Abubakar. National versus international culture, what role do they play in strengthening business relationship management?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, isn't it? Now, coming from a very small island indeed, we would subdivide our cultures within the United Kingdom into regional cultures. Okay, people often sound quite different depending on which part of this tiny island that they happen to be living in, and so they can kind of come with a different way of looking at things. For a moment, I think let's hear first of all from Malini, and then we'll hear from I think it was Svetlana next.
Really interesting question, Abu Bakar, and it reminds me of some research work that I looked at when I was doing my postgraduate studies into international cultural management and so on. And I think the author of this particular piece of research, his name is Hofstede. And I will get the exact correct name and put it into the chat for you. He actually studied international cultures on the basis of different dimensions. He called them, right, different units. And one of the measures that he used is individualism versus collectivism. And his research study, which covers over 60 countries, actually shows that some countries tend to a more individualistic culture, others tend to a more collectivist culture. And I think it's really important, when you are creating a culture of business relationship management, to be able to draw on those diverse perspectives, right? And that's possibly one of the examples that I can, draw your attention to with respect to your question. How do we actually, how do different cultures approach collaboration versus being able to, work quickly to outcomes on an individual basis? We do need to have both, and we need to be able to strike a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Svetlana, what are your thoughts on national versus international?
Well, I've met a lot of organizations who have this challenge facing the national versus international approach and culture in business relationship management. And indeed, it's very different. However, organizations need to create a consistent approach in managing relationships across the globe. Now, how we do it? So we start, again, going back to the common language. So we need to establish the common language, which boils down to the common knowledge. So other individuals across the globe needs to get their exposure to the common knowledge, what business relationship management is about, why we need it, why it's important, and utilize common language and ultimately build their business relationship management community across our organization. It takes time. It may take 6 months. It might take 1 year, but ultimately it works. And I can give a lot of examples of great companies who came to this understanding. For example, Magna International, 139, I think, 1,000 people across the globe, which I worked with. Another one is Borg Warner, and also 50,000 people across the globe who invest deliberately across all the geographical locations to create the culture. And ultimately, it becomes consistent.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Okay, very good. I think we've just got time for one final question. Shanice, so if we can, let's take that panel. We might need to be fairly brief on this one.
Of course. Thanks, Nick. So we've got a question from Gideon. Talking about culture can sound a bit soft, a bit Gen Z. Is it not simply that we go to work to put food on the table?
Okay, Louis, it's a great question. This isn't it interesting, this one. Start us off, then we'll hear from Daniëlle.
Yeah, thanks, Gideon. I have a lot of sympathy with this question. I too get frustrated by the way that conversations around culture get dragged over to the concerns of a particular generation, if you like, and I get it. But in response, I would just quote back something which I've often used when it comes to culture, which is that a mind cannot exist independent of culture. Whether you like it or not, there is an organizational culture, and you are in it.
All right. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Daniëlle, your thoughts then, Malini?
Well, there was a time that we just went to work to put food on the table. That was maybe when I started working a lot of years ago. But now things are different. And I know a lot of people say soft skills sound soft, but they are the most important skills, and they are hard work. So it's not touchy-feely, it's of the utmost importance. And I do think, Gideon, every new group of people that come into the workforce, now it's Gen Z, they carry a kind of an update within themselves. And it is crucial that the older generations, like myself, are open to the younger generations, Gen Z, and vice versa. I think mentoring each other and working very well with the different generations, it can be so nourishing. So much knowledge that we have together.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Thank you so much. Malini, and then Svetlana.
Gideon, typically we spend 40 hours a week or thereabouts, right, at work, and if we just go about our work thinking that it's simply to put food on our table. I think it can actually be over, think about your entire lifetime, number of years you might be working. It can actually be quite a depressing, I think, approach to work, right? Whereas if we actually try to bring our best self to work, like I mentioned earlier, if we feel that we are part of something that's bigger than ourselves, that we are actually contributing some value, not only to our organization and its customers, but also to our colleagues and to society as a whole, then every day, it's a pleasure to get up and to go to work. And then you'll find you're less stressed, right? You actually enjoy a better sense of well-being, and your company will also get great outcomes from you.
Thank you very much indeed. Svetlana, briefly.
So, well, Daniëlle and Malini said exactly what I wanted to say about all the generations and putting food on the table, which is not true. But I want to say something about Gen Z and Millennium specifically. The new generation takes our place now, right? When we are slowly getting to the second or third part of our work career. And for them, the sense of purpose and the culture is the thing. They wouldn't work to put the food on the table, and having children, millenniums and Gen Zs, and being exposed to this culture a lot. I know this for a fact from the first hand. They're looking for purpose, they're looking for culture, and that's something we all need to consider.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And timed to perfection, Svetlana. So very good indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Wow, what a fast-moving episode this has been as we've journeyed across the landscape that presents a business relationship management culture within our organization. So let's go for some closing remarks now on today's episode. Malini, you are as ever swan-like, gliding across the surface despite all of the activities that have been going on. Your final thoughts on today, please.
Thank you, Nick, and APMG for having me on the panel. I just want to reinforce something that a point that I made quite early on, that this business relationship management is a long-term thing, right? And so our culture is constantly a work in progress. And so we should always, be kind to ourselves, when we consider that, and also be prepared to pick ourselves up and keep moving forward.
Thank you very much indeed, Svetlana, and then Dianne.
Well, I would like to thank IPMG and the panel for this great, really good conversation. And I would like to encourage all the participants of this panel to get more knowledge about culture, about business relationship management, and take deliberate steps in learning of that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure that we can put up some links to things like the Business Relationship Management Institute and other great resources that we have available as well. So thank you, Svetlana. Dianne, your thoughts then, Louis?
Thanks very much, Nick, and to APMG International for the opportunity to appear on the show. It was a thought-provoking question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Louis, your final thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Genuinely an honour to be on the panel with such sort of intelligence, so many strong minds and so many insights. For everybody watching, I would just say one thing, which is go and look at what Edgar Schein says about culture. Read as much what he says about culture as you can, culture and leadership, and the 6 ways in which a culture can change. I think that's really going to help in terms of BRM culture as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll try and put some links through to Edgar's work into the social chat. So thank you, Louis. Great resource to highlight. Daniëlle, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Shanice.
Thank you. It was again a wonderful show with a very important subject. And we see all over the world that this me-ism, this individuality fetish is not doing us any good. So we need relationships desperately. I would say we should sign a declaration of interdependence. Business relationship management is so important. So thank you all for this wonderful talk we had together. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, it's a very strong visualization, isn't it? If you see people sitting behind a small desk, then they're likely to have a close relationship with their colleagues. If you see them sitting behind a very big desk, it may not be the case. Let's move on. I'll leave that thought with you. Let's move on. Shanice, your final thoughts on today, please.
I think this has been one of my favourite episodes of the whole 106 episode that we've done. The panelists have been fantastic. Your answers are so insightful. And I'm definitely going to rewatch this over the weekend with my notepad handy. So thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, very good. And thank you so much for navigating through all of the questions. Now, we've had a huge audience online today and very active group of people. So on behalf of you all as an audience, I'm going to thank our panel on your behalf for their brilliant contribution. And also in reverse, we as a panel are thanking you, each and every one of you, for the contributions that you've made. We've had people from pretty much all of the continents around the world. We're yet to have anybody, by the way, from Antarctica. So if you happen to know anybody who's sitting in one of those research communities on Antarctica, it would be really brilliant to have them on Level Up. We have every other continent has contributed so far, right? So it'd be really lovely to welcome them. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Panel, thank you to our producers online. Now, looking forwards a little bit, there's a few other resources for you to think about over the weekend. You can, of course, visit our website, apmginternational.com, and there you'll find every question that's been asked and answered over all 106 episodes. It connects you with 170 experts or more even now around the world. And you can listen to the audio versions, which are curated on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Level Up Your Career with APMG. Next week, on Monday, the 31st of October, as it's Halloween, we're hoping to cure people of their fear of KPIs, all right, as we look into how to grow your business by measuring the right things. And then we will turn our attention to building a culture of lean on the episode on Friday, the 4th of November. So please do join us for both of those. Subscribe to the show, and we'll, of course, send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye now.